Check out the Rugby Rant podcast show.
I still love that. I think we're keeping that one.
That the sound quality sucked. I'm gonna have to get some of those lapel mics or steel TJs, but it was it was a good crack, and I liked it. It was fun. So
I think we'll start off with how the big guy didn't get to Chicago. But before we do that, this is episode 224 of the Rugby Rant. I'm the big guy, Scott Farrar. That's Rob the Hammerschmidt. So the Thursday before, the plan was to get there Thursday evening, get there about an hour after Dan and Sheila Falcon, so that way you didn't have to go like crazy picking everybody up, right? You know.
And by the way, folks, just so you know, at this stage of the game, the plan was my wife, because I was still working, was going to pick Dan and Sheila up, take them to get lunch at some, good Italian beef hot dog place, and then pick Scott up something to eat so that we know the big guy is going to run hungry at that point. So we got to pick something up to eat. So we did that, right? Full well expecting the big guy to land, scarf down some food, and be happy as a clam for the evening.
So the plane is supposed to take off at 1:00. I show up at 11. Breeze through security as I always do, because TSA pre-check in the line. I'm wearing my USA Rugby shirt. Some guy goes, "You play rugby?" I was like, "Well, I used to. I run a show. Like, I'm going to Chicago for the the All Blacks Ireland match." And he goes, "Well, I'm from Chicago." I'm like, "And you didn't hear about the fucking New Zealand Ireland match?" And he just gave me like a dirty look. But fair play to him. But you would figure a guy who said he played club rugby for 20 years, who is from Chicago, like actively lives there, would know there's a But anyway, so I get through security. I sit down. I'm an avid reader. I'm sitting there reading my book. The time to board comes and goes. They swear that our plane is on the ground. Finally, so we're supposed to board at 1:45, take off at 1. Finally, around 3:30, 4 o'clock, our plane shows up. Now, all those people from Chicago have been stuck from the flight and then on the tarmac for an extra 2 or 3 hours. So they're obviously not happy. The plane crew goes and they clean it up. We board. I put everything away, and the first thing I do is start to watch the Blues Brothers. As everybody comes in and they shut the door, and we start to taxi away from the jetway, the pilot comes on and goes, "Just so you know, if we aren't in the air in the next 93 minutes, we have to come back to the gate because me and my co-pilot will have timed out for safe flight." We were on that tarmac for 95 minutes and weren't even close to taking off. They bring us back. So this pushes us now to 5:30, 6 o'clock. 7 o'clock, they cancel the flight. I have now been there for a while. It was also one of the biggest days of rain this year for the city of New York. A lot of parkways were flooded. So I had to wait another 3 hours before my father came to get me, because he couldn't actually come to get me because things were flooded. And what they did offer me was a flight to Chicago on Tuesday. Yeah.
Hey, Bodie, do you think you could postpone the game?
So yeah, I ended up not making it. Gave my ticket to somebody.
We felt so bad. We really did. I mean, your presence was missed. It truly was.
Yeah. I mean, I could have for like triple the price. The option was to literally get to Chicago. It would have been 1 a.m. Saturday morning, do the whole thing, and then leave Chicago Sunday at 6 a.m. for like triple the price. And it was like a 3-hour commute to a different fucking airport. I would either have to go 3 hours up to New Haven or Hartford, or 3 hours down to Philly. So it just wasn't going to work out.
Brutal. That's brutal. Yeah. They made another movie. I believe many people have heard of this, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yes.
That would have been Scott's experience. And
but I did have a home to go to. That's the ending's a little better. So, but anyway,
I was thinking you were more like Steve Martin than you were like John Candy.
Well, I don't know. You're focusing on a movie with one fat guy and one skinny guy. And who do we have on the screen? So why would I think I was Steve Martin? Anyway, I think it's time for
all right. Here's a fan quiz. What was the name of John Candy's polka band?
Oh God. I know that I remember the jackets. They were the Sheboygan somethings.
No, not bad. That's not a bad guess, but that is incorrect. It's the Kenosha Kickers.
Kenosha Kickers.
Kenosha Kickers. That's right.
Kenosha Kickers.
Every time I drive down to St. Louis, you know that hotel where those aren't pillows? That hotel is about an hour outside of Chicago. And,
no, it was the Kenosha Kickers, but wasn't he like the Polka King of Sheboygan or something? He says
that may
he's
be
the Polka King of something. But anyway, let's go to around the pitch, dude. Come on. All right, Hammer, I'm gonna let you kick it off.
Yeah, well, there was some big action this weekend in Chicago at the Pete Thornley Fields in Lamont, Illinois. Of course, the home of my team, the Chicago Blaze rugby team. Midwest Championships. Quickly go through the scores just in case you guys want some updates. If anybody is going to be playing any of these teams at one, by the way, you can check out at Midwest Rugby Union's YouTube page all the matches on replay, provided by our good friend Ryan Ginty of Next Level Rugby. But here we go. D3 Rising Stars, East versus West, 32 to 24 in favor of the West. Then the men's premiership results. The Lions eke out a victory in the last minute. It was an absolute stunner. They were up 21-5 at half. The Bombers came back when they get the win. The Bombers go ahead with a 45-meter penalty slotted by Connor Burns of formerly of Miami. And then they give away a couple penalties and the Lions do a nice job of driving down. So, congratulations to them. All hats off. They played well and played the referee very well that day. Women's premiership, North Shore. So Chicago had a really good showing this weekend, 29-22 over the Pittsburgh Forge. Men's Division II, the Southside Irish, here again in Chicago, defeat Fort Wayne 45-31. Women's Division II, Milwaukee Skyla, I don't know how you pronounce that, Scylla, Skyla, 58-39 over South Buffalo. Then men's Division III result, Detroit Tradesmen eke out a win. Well, I wouldn't eke out. It was close for most of the game, 36-21 over the Blaze, D3 side. And then men's Division IV, Lincoln Park defeats the Findlay Scars 24-22. So again, overall, good day for teams in Chicago. And by the way, the showcase event was the Chicago Hounds Academy. Will be played the Midwest Thunderbirds and won 36-22. Shout out to my man Calvin Irig, who scored a hell of a try. And just in case anybody's interested, the Hounds Academy will be playing the Pacific Pride out in Langford this weekend. So what's interesting is they're going to be sprinkling in some of these guys from the Lions as well as from the Bombers, along with some other, some of these lads. So it should be a pretty good mix of guys. Again, I would expect to see guys that are potentially on the Hounds, larger roster maybe. Actually, Preston will be traveling to Langford on Friday to play with the lads. So we're pretty excited around these parts.
Nice. That's awesome. Listen, and also check out your Scrum Half Connection. Wendy's been doing a whole series on all the club work going on, men's and women's. Obviously she focuses on the women's, but she's doing like a whole thing. It's on her TikTok, it's on her Instagram. It's on our YouTube Shorts. So check out your Scrum Half Connection.
Here's the thing. All right, I'm just going to get this off my back and get it out of the way right now, Scott. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about it next week. But, you and I pay attention to social media. It's kind of part and parcel of what we have to do here. But I get frustrated, and I don't know where these people live, whether they're expats living in the United States, whether they're foreigners that have horned in on our social media accounts, or they're just disgruntled Americans, rugby fans, if you can call them fans, but always poo-pooing like rugby sucks in the United States. It's never going to grow. It's horrible. There's no fans. Nobody and all this stuff. And I go to these club events and I listen to people like Wendy talk about, women's club rugby, and I listen to, what TJ talks about on the West Coast and what's going on in the Northeast and NERFU that you're going to hit up on in a minute. And I go, club rugby is extremely strong right now. Somebody just come and watch these events and take this in, and you'll understand just how strong rugby can be. Now, at the top levels, we have some work to do, but we'll get to that.
Well, I'm going to save my rant about that for a little bit later.
Okay.
But so, yeah, you're right. So what I'm going to be talking about now is, so at the conclusion of NERFU's Division II Regional Championship match, apparently there was an incident. It was reported to NERFU, and this is the statement they put out. Finals incident update. The New England Rugby Football Union NERFU is aware of serious incident that was reported following the conclusion of yesterday's Division II Regional Championship match. The health and safety of our players, the health and safety of our athletes is paramount, and we take all reports of player injury and alleged misconduct with the utmost gravity. We can confirm that an individual sustained a serious injury, and our immediate concern remains with the individual, whom we wish a full and swift recovery. Law enforcement was contacted at the time of the report, and NERFU will fully cooperate with any inquiries made by authorities to ensure the highest degree of impartiality and integrity in both the fact finding and in any subsequent disciplinary process. NERFU is adhering to World Rugby and USA Rugby guidelines and is working with independent experts to manage the review objectively. As this is an ongoing investigation and an active internal review, we will be making no further public comment at this time. We ask that the privacy of all individuals involved be respected and further updates provided when they are appropriate. And then in bold, NERFU unequivocally condemns all forms of violence and behavior that violate the spirit of rugby, both on and off the pitch. Such contact has no place in our sport. To me, Rob, it sounds like a fight that got out of hand. And specifically after a match. And, me and you were talking before, and I recalled one incident that took place during a match that went beyond a dust up. Luckily, for all the matches I played, nothing happened afterwards. It's terrible to hear that after you just gave this glowing review of club rugby. So we're going to wait to see what NERFU comes up with as far as their investigation. But, so far, without any knowledge of any of the details, it sounds like a fight where somebody was seriously injured, and that can't fucking happen, dude. That can't fucking happen.
No, there's no place in it. And I think that's always the thing I appreciated about rugby fans is at the end of the day, and you've been to test rugby matches, not only just in the United States, you've been to high level matches abroad, but we've been to a lot of test matches, and I think a lot of the fans that we're in close contact with would attest to this. Everybody gets along. At the end of the day, it's rugby's the winner, and we all just say fair dinkum. Your side played better than ours. We walk away and we raise a pint and celebrate the fact that rugby was played. I hate to see things like this happen because it harkens to some of the hooliganism that soccer is known for, and that just has no place in sport.
Honestly, it's I've been to thousands of sporting events. Rob knows I go to minor league hockey games all the time. I go to minor league baseball. I go to regular baseball games. I go to regular hockey games. I go to regular football games. I go to basketball games. I go to college basketball games. I go to college hockey, baseball, lacrosse, rugby. I mean, I go to many, many sporting events, and I can count on one hand how many times I felt a twinge because something was getting out of hand out of the thousands of sporting events I've been to. And none of them were rugby. So again, unacceptable. Can't wait to see what comes of it and what NERFU is going to do to make sure that action doesn't happen again. But we're going to push past that. It was just it was interesting because that's my old union. So it was interesting to see that, especially from Division II. Like, we're not talking about where we shouldn't be talking about this. It's not acceptable in any form, but Division IV, people who are new to the sport, don't understand it, maybe make that stupid mistake. But we're talking Division II, like that's you're too old. You know what I mean? You're not children anymore. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're too old for this shit. So
and at the end of the day, it's a game. It's a game. Yeah. It's not life. It's a game.
Exactly. What the fuck's the difference, man?
as disappointed as I was in that result with the Bombers and Lions, at the end of the day, I congratulated Luke Lewis, and I congratulated Wags, and I congratulated Sam Harris, who all helped the Lions. I congratulated John Dupree from the Lions, and Peyton Wall and some of the other lads that played in that game, and said, great job and good luck in the spring. So
it is what it like. I listen, I can understand, again, on the field, on the pitch. You know what I mean? It's you get into
you let your emotions get the best of your better
judgment. And even maybe like you get to the point where maybe you don't talk to that person in the social. I can understand that. I'm just, some people need that space.
I know,
like,
you need a break. You need it.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So I can understand that. So, but again, the next day, everybody's fine,
Yeah.
And one last thing before we talk about, because we talk about internationals for our rant, one more around the pitch that me and Rob are going to share is congratulations to the Grand Poobah and his wife Mia, the Perazzinis. They had their baby girl Cecilia about a week ago. I got to see Mike when I went to visit Adam Hughes, who was reading from his book, and Mike and Mia surprised me. They didn't tell me they were going to be there, so it was cool. I showed up, and I was more surprised that Mike and Mia were there than not that I wasn't excited to meet Adam for the first time, but I haven't seen Mike in a while, and it's a couple hours trek with a very pregnant wife. So it's
God bless her.
Yeah, she's
God bless Mia.
She's a rugby player too, so it's just one of those things where she does it. But yeah, welcome to the world, baby Cecilia, the baby Poobah. Congratulations, Mike and Mia. But yeah, so we're gonna be talking about the international test window that just passed. I'll probably start off with a little rant right after this intro. So it's time to get taken off of YouTube because it's Cecilia, I'm down on my knees. Let's see if YouTube picks that up. But anyway, so we're going to be talking about the international test window that just passed. So Rob's going to let me get into a rant real quick. Shut the fuck up. I'm talking to you fans. You motherfuckers bitch when we lose. You motherfuckers bitch when we fucking win. I don't want to fucking hear it. I'm so tired of so-called fans. We fucking beat Romania. I don't care where Romania was in the World Cup the World Rugby rankings, and bitching about a fucking trophy that was created 11 fucking years ago. The trophy's been around since 2014, and people are like, "Oh, they're just making up trophies now." 11 fucking years, and it commemorates a match that happened 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So one, fucking educate yourself. And two, quit your fucking bitching. I'm sick and tired. You want to bitch that we got pumped by Scotland? Fucking go for it. You want to bitch that we threw away the game against Georgia? Fucking go for it. But we fucking beat Romania. So shut the fuck up. I'm tired of you guys fucking bitching. And everybody in our fucking group chat knows this because people go after people in our group chat because they say things that maybe are statistically relevant, and I'm just tired of we had some fucking guy going after our boy MLR Stats, and the guy actually said, "I've been upset with USA Rugby since 1986." Motherfucker, that's a year before I was born, and what have you done to fix it? Nothing. So shut the fuck up. All right, Rob, let's talk about the international window.
Hey, can I just say one thing before we do, just so fans know? Scott Lawrence will be joining the podcast. I think we're going to work on a time next week, and we'll be releasing that interview within the next 2 weeks. So stay tuned. We're going to get things straight from Scott. I think, he has a way of being honest but fair. And I think we saw in some of the debrief from the last couple matches that, he clearly knows and understands there are things that need to be worked upon. And so that's what we're going to dig into, is find out,
And
his assessment and find out
we're going to have some questions for him.
Yeah.
I do have to say the one thing this same guy said to our buddy James Dealey was, well, it's not my fault that you get paid to speak nicely about USA Rugby. To which James, when I brought that to James's attention, because he didn't even see that comment, he goes, I get paid for this shit? We don't. We fucking don't.
They must have been putting the check in the neighbor's mailbox because.
And the best is, James is born in England.
Right.
And a fucking Canadian citizen.
Canadian. Right.
So people are there's a fucking moron around every corner. But yeah, we're gonna have Scott Lawrence on soon and ask him some questions we're dying to ask. So let's talk about the Scotland game. We got pumped 85-0. And this is a question we're gonna have to ask Scott. In a situation like that, why isn't Ethan McVeigh starting for us? Barring injury. I don't know what the physical stuff was. But in that game where we know we're not gonna win, right? Rob, let's be honest. We're traveling out there. It's the first match since the last international, since we played them in DC. Why not start Ethan McVeigh and give him meaningful minutes against a tier 1 team and then get pumped 85-0? That's my only question.
Yeah, I think that's legitimate. I mean, I guess we've already qualified. Right.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, given that we've qualified for 2027, a big part of me says when you go on a tour like this, there are matches that I think the Romania match is one that we had to say we need to win this one. We need to really put our best foot forward against Georgia. There's an opportunity to be had there. Scotland's going to be a tough ask. Mm-hmm. And I'll get into why here in a minute. But having said that, I think at some point you want to sprinkle in and give everybody an opportunity. It might be 5 or 10 minutes at the end. Maybe it's because there's an injury, but you want to try to give everybody an opportunity, because at the end of the day, the focus is on preparing and helping lads who are going to be in the mix. A guy like Meve, who's a young guy, who's going to be in the mix potentially in 2 years' time. An opportunity to show what he can do. I mean, your two scrum halves, Ruben De Haas, I think is 26, if I'm not mistaken. So he'll be around in 2027. Will he be around in 2031? Maybe. I mean, he could be.
But he's already played so many meaningful minutes for Eagles at scrum half. Like he doesn't right in this particular window. He doesn't need the prep.
Yeah, right. He's the most capped USA player, on that match day squad, by the way. So it's not like he needs the caps. That being said, I could understand why that may not be the match you want to put him under the pump. But I think your overall point on the 3-test tour is relevant.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it was just an ugly match. Tries up and down from Scotland. They converted a bunch of them. We gained 126 meters on 63 carries, 5 broken tackles, only 1 clean break, only 4 offloads. Turnovers conceded 14-14.
14, right. Tied. Exactly.
But here we go. Missed tackles, 40. Do you know how many missed tackles Scotland had? 5. Now here's where I kind of kicks in play 25. Why? Yeah,
I sometimes I wonder, and this will be a question for Scott, what defines a Scott Lawrence led team? What style? And I would have thought like an Ethan McVeigh would have lent himself to that style, because Ethan is quick to the ball, much like a Connor Buckley. Quick to the ball, gets the ball out of the ruck very quickly. I think under his direction, at least in MLR level, I haven't seen him play in a test match. MLR level, the ball plays very quick, and I would have suspected, if if you're going to go up against the big boys, why not test your mettle and see how well you can play your style of game that you believe you can play, or that you want to play moving forward. So that's my big question is, how does Scott want to play the game from the U.S. perspective? If you're going to play that way, I mean, yeah, you might adapt and adjust a few things. If it's rainy, you might put a few more kicks up in the air, things like that. But by and large, stamp your style and play it, and get all the lads used to playing that style.
And you know what? They had 12 kicks to touch, which if it's going into touch, it's one thing, but 17 kicks to the opponent's collection. That sounds crazy to me. And do you know why it sounds crazy to me? Because our ruck success rate was 94%. We won 6 mauls to their 2. We won 14 lineouts to their 9. So what are we doing here? So besides scrums, we're beating them on set plays. We're beating them at, we're managing them at the breakdown relatively, right? Beating them in the mauls when we can get our lineouts. So why are we kicking the ball away? It's crazy to me. Total possession, 39%.
Wow.
And in the second half, it was only 38. In the last 10 minutes, it was only 41. What do we have to lose? Why do we continue to kick it when we're losing 85-0?
Right. Yeah. Have a go.
Yeah. That's what I don't understand. That obviously didn't work. It didn't work in the first half. So we're going to do it more in the second half. That just seems a little crazy to me.
Right.
So again, 85-0.
And real quick before we leave that, I want everybody to understand something, that the United States starting 23 or 23-man roster had 276 caps amongst them. Now, arguably Scotland had a Scotland B team. I mean, you had no Finn Russell, for example. Who's the 15? Blair Kinghorn, no Blair Kinghorn, but they had 387 caps in a relatively young side, right? Their Darcy Graham was their most cap player at 47, but they had Rory Sutherland with 43, Scott Cummings, who was the vice captain, with 42, Duhan van der Merwe with 49, Darcy Graham with 47, George Horn coming off the bench with 38. So that gives you an idea of just how blooded some of their major components of their team were. Comparatively speaking, here's the top 5 test caps in the U.S. side. 43 with Ruben de Haas, I mentioned him. Other than that, Taveti Lepetti with 24, Luke Carty with 25, both came off the bench. Then you got Helu at 21, and then Mitch Wilson was 17. So, yes, they had 100 more caps, and it's not that much more compared to, like if you look at an all black side, they'd have somewhere in the neighborhood of 600 or just over 600. But relatively speaking, as far as caps go, we had a fairly inexperienced side that we're putting up against, a strong Scotland side. Not the strongest, but a strong Scotland side as far as experience goes. So I don't know that we can't expect much more given those circumstances. And I don't have a problem with Scott playing some of these players who have like a guy like Hilsenbeck with 5, or a guy like, at 5 for the United States, or a guy like Paddy Ryan with 8, or Arno with 7, or Lindenmuth with 5. Getting these guys some meaningful minutes. A Story with 8, getting them some meaningful minutes. Under the pump, under a very good squad, a squad that for 3 seasons on the hoof and 6 nations. This was a nation that beat England, and ruined England's chances. So putting them under pressure in this situation to see what they can do and see how they handle the pressure. And then you can look forward, make adjustments, in another tier against other tier 1 teams. So it was a bad result, all things being said, but given the fact that we're a relatively young side, I'm not surprised. And quite frankly, it didn't concern me overwhelmingly.
What is funny to me is that you had Caleb Geiger start that match. Now I understand Scotland is not their A team, so it's not their full pack, but Caleb Geiger, who we've been talking about last year, we felt was on the teams, but wasn't getting the minutes. All of a sudden is getting the minutes. And then he also started against that big pack against Georgia. Now,
and that's paying. By the way, it's paying off. I've been a little bit critical of Geiger's throws, but he's gotten better. I mean, he's gotten better.
Yeah, and listen, and how do you get better? You got to get there, and you have to realize
under pressure.
He is one thing he has that I don't think we've had in the past. He can run with the fucking ball. He is a rumbling, stumbling, tough guy to take down. And
have you ever seen him get tackled behind the game line?
Yeah, like and not that we don't have guys who, when they have the ball, are tough, but like, to me, if you want to put him like against Butch has a little more wiggle to him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Caleb has a little more run straight to him.
Right.
Both of them are good.
He's a punishing runner.
Yeah, but I think he wears you down a little more.
That's right.
Especially in the championship minutes there. So we'll move on to the Georgia game.
Yeah.
My one big question, and I got to be honest, I don't think we've ever criticized a player openly here. And before I criticize this player, I will say I do think he right before he did what he did, he came in, Michael Bosca came in and he did some things, and I thought, man, not only did he cop out defense, he was a little cheeky. So we went with a 7-1 split, right? Meaning we have forwards coming in. He was the one back substitute, right? And they substituted him at 9. And he realizes his back line is tired. We're talking, this was like 75th minute. He comes into a line out, or he comes up to a scrum. Referee says use it. He gives it a little wiggle. Okay. Referee says use it a second time. He gives it a little wiggle. Right before the referee was he sets up a caterpillar and then does a box kick into touch. But what did that do? That was an entire minute where the back sat there on their back feet resting. So when it comes to winning this match, and we are down by we were down. I'm trying to remember. We were down by 8.
8. I think
yes,
that's right. Yeah.
So people question why we kicked for goal in the last 5 minutes or the last 2 minutes. The reason we went for the kick first and not the try is because we have to score twice. Going for the try and trying to push it in on this Georgia team was going to get us to the death, and the converted try doesn't win us the match, right?
Right.
Kicking for the penalty gives us the 3 points, and then getting the ball back and working it to the death with a converted try gives us the chance to win. We get the ball back, we run a couple phases, and this is where I got to question what Michael Bosca was doing. Why did he kick it away, Rob?
I haven't got a chance to talk with Michael. He's a good friend of mine. People that have watched the show know that Michael and I have become close.
Listen, it's not. I'm not like saying he's a bad guy. I'm not saying he's a terrible rugby player. You know, it wasn't just a glitch in his head. But to me, you have to score. The kick chase has not been working all match. All match, it hasn't been working. What has been working is we had a couple of line breaks. We had a couple phases. We have fresh forwards who could do a couple pick and goes or a couple quick pods, pod one, and push the pace, because we're starting to roll over them a little bit with some steam. So why kick away for a box kick? What happens? There was no kick chase. There was no counter kick. Romania gets it. They throw the ball out wide because now we're in disarray, and they went and they scored that final try.
So, and I'm sorry, I was not distracted. I was actually looking for it. There was an interesting comment on Reddit, and I don't claim to understand. Like, I was a forward, okay? I don't claim to understand the 9 position all that much, and when to box kick or when to put ball in hand, but I was reading a Reddit comment, and one of the Redditors actually said, "Look, I spoke with somebody who had been at one time involved with the USA staff, and he goes, I asked them about that choice by Bosca, and he actually put up a pretty good point defending it. And a lot of it had to do with what Michael saw positionally at that moment in his back line. His backs were very flat. There was a forward, I believe, in the way of that back line, right? And so they're looking at that. There were very few options, and one of them wasn't the go forward ball because you're well organized and well structured to get the ball out wide. Now, one might argue, well, that's the job of the 9 is to get your forwards up there and do X, Y, and Z. That late in the game, clearly they're tired. There's some they're gassed out. Are you going to have forwards that are going to have go forward ball and not get driven back and not, create a turnover or whatnot? So it was interesting comment. And again, I can't say whether it was right or wrong, but it is something that is worth looking at, in a larger picture of what else was happening on the field to know whether it was the right decision or not. I don't know. I'm not going to say it was right. I'm not going to say it was wrong because I really don't have the education at the 9 position to be able to tell you. What I am going to say is I think there's a defensible position for it, given that moment in time, given how the alignment was happening, where they were in the field, et cetera.
Here's the thing, though. When you look at the statistics, 1,009 meters kick from hand, 12 in the touch. Guess how many opponent collected for USA? 23.
High percentage.
Yeah. So, 75% of our kicks are going directly to them with no kick chase.
And therein lies the problem. Are we out kicking our chase, or is our chase not well organized? Or are they tired?
But again, that goes to like in the play having the rugby IQ to say, okay, your back line's not set up right. Okay, there's a forward in the way. But 2 minutes before that, he just did some fucking black magic to give his backs an extra minute's fucking rest. So that's where I'm like, you make this great play to work the referee a little bit to give your guys a rest, and then pick the ball and go yourself, man. You have fresh legs.
I found the comment. Here's the logic for Michael Baska's kick was simple. Rugby is a sport where territory matters more than possession, and you can effectively score without the ball by kicking deep to Georgia. The U.S. are assuming that most probably, with 30 seconds left in the clock, Georgia would, let's ignore what actually happened, want to avoid kicking the ball back to the U.S., so they would hold on to it and go through phases up till 80 minutes are up when they can kick it out. This potentially gives the U.S. several phases in the Georgian half to try and effect a turnover, or preferably a penalty for sealing off, then they can kick to the corner and score a try. The problem was the chase was poor. So the question, again, the question comes back, was it Michael doing what the coaches were asked him to do in that pressure situation, given what they needed, or were other players not executing the game plan? I think there are a lot of questions that have yet to be answered.
Well, here's the thing. Georgia only conceded 6 penalties the whole match. So again, if you want to talk about percentage and all this other stuff, yeah, that may be the overall percentage, but in that match, right? And we're talking about guys who are driven by statistics and Scott Lawrence staff. We were beating them with possession. We had possession of the ball the last 10 minutes. We had 64% of the possession of the ball. So why on the actual last possession did we kick it away?
Can I just can I just be a devil's advocate?
Yeah,
I get your point. I think you bring up some important stats just about opponent collection as well as about the few number of penalties. I mean, 6 is a pretty stingy amount of penalties for for any team, right? That being said, that's I think the difference between rugby and football and soccer and American football is that as a player, you don't know those stats when you're in the game, and there isn't a coach on the sideline that's relaying it to into your helmet, right? To say, hey, let's not box kick this away. They're very good at regathering. We're not going to probably get the result that we want. let's keep this ball in hand. Players have to make decisions based upon the system that they're being asked to play, right? And so, Scott Lawrence isn't, he doesn't have the signals like Rassi, up there with the red, yellow, and green, right?
Here's the thing. I'm not asking for the signals, but what I'm asking for is the rugby IQ. I'm sorry, the rugby IQ there for us, for this team, who the match before, who had no kick chase, who the match before that had no fucking kick chase. So we historically, the last 3 fucking matches, and then including this match that you're currently in, don't have a kick chase. And Michael Baska is on the sideline watching what's happening. So and to be honest, if the answer is, well, he was just playing the system he was given, then the coaching staff should be seriously looked at, because we're playing a system that we can't win with. We need to beat the big dogs. We almost beat a Georgia team who was kind of hungover. It was their first international match, but it would have been a big win. It would have put us in the press, right? And again, this isn't just about Michael Baska. Like, this could have been anybody, any 9 who did this. But I just don't understand the logic of you had Mark O'Keefe, break away 10 minutes beforehand. You got down there for that penalty conversion on like a 30-meter break. You didn't get there on a kick chase and a penalty or a mishandling of it. And that's proven by that statistic that I showed you about the last 10 minutes of possession. We had the ball 64%.
I think the more relevant question is, we're up 21-5 at the beginning at the end of the first half, if I'm not mistaken. But
that's also Georgia hangover. But that's also Georgia hangover. Like, Georgia is the better team, right? They're the team that they want to put into this fucking Six Nations. So, like, let's not make it, let's not seem like they're not tier 1. Right. I'm just saying, like, think about it. It's their first international test match. They haven't played much rugby together since the last international window. They got it together in the second half to start doing what they do, which is battering ram rugby. I mean, they're great at it. Right. So we were lucky enough to catch them in the first half, So I think, we punched them in the mouth that first half, and, we got up enough to be up there to try and win. And again, I'm also the type of guy that we shouldn't harp on one play either. We should have beat him by fucking 50. Right. If we beat him by 50, we're not talking about this anyway. So, again, I just question, because even just a lot of the kicking and having DeHaas start again, and a lot of, kicking for 1,000 meters in hand. And, Georgia's a big team up front with the forwards, but their backs are fucking good. Like, they're not just, it's not like they're playing forwards in the backfield,
Let's not forget there are a number of those guys playing in URC with URC teams. So it's I think that's the thing we can come away from. And I want to talk about that as we kind of bring a summation to all 3 tests after we talk about Romania. But let's not forget the level, like you kind of you didn't hit at it. You just said it. The level that Georgia operates, that they're a team that's being considered for the Six Nations potentially, or an expanded Six Nations. So, the fact that we were up on them 21-5, I think, at one point, and the fact that we, it was a close game up until the last 5 minutes, is we got to take successes when they come. Let's talk about Romania.
Well, and real quick, their kicking was impeccable. I think they went 5 for 6 on their conversions. So yeah, let's talk about the Romania match, the win. So, but recapping, we lost to Georgia 43-30, and that last 7 points was at the death. But yeah, then we go into the next week against Romania. Romania not looking too well. A nice stadium. The stadium was really nice. I was surprised it didn't have that many people there, but I know it wasn't in their capital city, I believe. But yeah, it was decent. It was decent match.
I think it was in their
it's in their national stadium, but I don't think that's in.
It's not in Bucharest.
No, I'm blanking on the frigging town. Sorry, people. It's gonna come to me at some point. But we relied on a lot of slotting penalty goals. Let's be honest. We converted both tries. Cardi was slotting penalty goals like he was going out of style. And I think we just take the points as we get them. And to be honest, the last try was a penalty try in the 83rd minute. I think our boys were just tired. We had 4 weeks of travel. Scotland to Georgia to Romania. It's a tough match.
Well, hats off to the lads, and for a lot of reasons. One of them is that I don't know that all those yellows were fair, right? I think there were, if they were not mistaken, there were 3 yellow cards.
I'm looking it up.
I know Cardi was one.
There was two.
There's 2.
Yes.
At any rate, the one against Cardi I thought was suspect because he hit him in the shoulder and then it glanced up and hit him in the face.
Yeah. Well, the last one was that penalty try. So,
Right. And then Lindenmuth, or was it Lindenmuth or was it no, it was the lock. Marno is Red Lingashays. I actually, from the reverse angle, I think the official was on the wrong side of that maul. And you actually see from the replay on the back side, you see one of their players stumble and fall. And then as a result, the maul collapses and he blames Marno, which I thought was a bit unfair. But my point is that we were down. Now they had I think during Cardi's yellow card, they had a yellow card about 2 minutes in. So we really played even for most of that. But nevertheless, the fact that we're able to survive those situations, we had a few passages of play that were really tough inside their attacking 5 meters that we hung on. I think we want to knock on and we were able to get, clear the line and get ourselves out of danger. So I really thought in that regard, the boys showed some resolve in this Thursday test where, their legs a little tired. They might be a little over.
I was mistaken. You know what I was thinking? I was thinking of the Georgia test match was in a different. So the Romanian test was in Bucharest. Where the hell was the Georgia? Continue. Sorry, I'm going down my.
Yeah, no, that wasn't in their capital. You are correct there. So the other thing that I was impressed with was that attacking scrum that resulted in their second try. I really thought that passage of play was phenomenal. Not only because they worked, it was a very, very well worked backline play off that, but then the ball essentially was scored at the other touchline or, next to the other touchline. And so I thought they used the whole width of the field in that, that whole series of passage of play. And that showed some real tactical brilliance and some timing in that, when they have an opportunity to really work together for some time and put in some quality minutes, both, in the test matches, but also in training where they can focus and dial things in, they can really have some nice passage to play with ball in hand. The backs can really work well together. So that was my takeaway. They avenged, Chicago in July of 2024, and they won a match that I think we needed to win.
Yeah, definitely. Again, I think the ending wasn't what we were looking for. You take that penalty try away, it's 26-11 instead of 26-18. To me, I felt, we pretty much dominated, the match. It was, Romania had about 11 turnovers. They missed about over 20 tackles. Our missed tackles were under 20 this match. You look at the kicks in play, Rob. Kicks into touch, we kicked 16. Kicks to the opponent, only 11. Imagine that.
Well, look, I think we have to recognize, like, Luke Carty, I don't think he gets enough credit for his ability to control a game. He's not he doesn't have that X factor at the 10 position. Like he does make breaks or attempts breaks, but he doesn't have that, that like an AJ used to have when AJ, was in his prime. Yeah. But even then, I think, AJ's, his ball and play boots a bit better than Cart's. And so, we miss a guy like AJ in a situation like this. That being said, when Karts is on his game, and I think he was on his game this, against Romania. He does a really nice job at controlling the game with his boot, whether it's, ball from hand or, on penalties or, putting the ball into touch and finding space. He does a nice job. There was one opportunity. It wasn't a 50-22 because we took the ball back in behind our 50, but he did a nice job putting the ball right in behind the 22. And he's always a threat. So I thought he had a really nice game against Romania.
It's interesting.
Save the yellow card.
Definitely. Interestingly enough, Romania 100% line out success, won 10 mauls. I feel like, that's an area we should have dominated a little more. Because my point being, if you're going to allow them to take the line out and win it, because we didn't steal any line outs, you got to beat them on the maul. You can't have them convert 10 mauls out of 12. You know what I mean? Like if you're not going to really go up to really try and steal it, and you're going to set up to defend the maul, then you got to defend the maul well. Because if you don't defend the maul well, then you might as well jump and try and get the ball, at that point. But again, those are the adjustments where somebody in game in the field has to make the call and say what's working and what's not. And I think sometimes we aren't teaching our guys how to be analytical during play. Right? The X factor we can give ourselves is the ability to change things on the fly, because a lot of people don't. Right? So the X factor we don't have is the number of caps that everybody else has. But what we do have is we have a lot of players who played sports like football and hockey and basketball, and things change on the field. So, to me, the American athlete has that mindset where they can change things on the field if they're trained to do it.
And as a counterpoint, do we really have that many guys in this 23 that played a lot of other sports? There are a few. Corey Daniels, an obvious example, but a lot of other guys are
Caleb
individuals that played. Yes, that's another one. I agree. But Rufus McLean, Marno.
Here's the problem. You then
Ruben.
have to train them to do it. You know what I mean? So you don't have to train Ruben DeHaas how to fucking box kick. All the minutes Ruben DeHaas needs are how to get the ball out a little faster, probably how to pick the ball, decide to pick the ball himself and go when he doesn't see anything. And the second thing is when not to box kick, because we know he could do it. We got to train the guys to have every club in their bag and use it, because that's the only X factor we're going to have until we fix whatever we need to fix to get these guys started at the age of 5.
Oh,
right. Because what we could be the fittest team. That's not really going to help us, But what what can change is Rocky 2, right? You ever see Rocky 2?
So
he starts fighting right-handed. He starts
Yeah.
fighting right-handed. And then in the middle of the fight, he switches back to southpaw. And it sounds stupid. It sounds campy, but that's something we need to learn how to do. We need to, because we can do both. We can do both.
I don't know.
We can box kick if our chase works. But if our chase isn't going to work, don't fucking box kick, because then you're just giving up possession. And yes, you're gaining meters, but you're not really gaining meters because you didn't chase them for them to make the mistake.
I see your point. There. I do, because there are times which I get frustrated by our box kicking because there isn't enough pressure on, the receiving defender.
It would be one thing if we're putting pressure on them.
Right.
If we're putting pressure on them and then they're just not making the mistake. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if we're getting them and collecting them right at the thing, and guess what? They're rucking so well that they're not losing possession, or they've caught every ball despite the counter pressure. There's nothing I could say. It's just, okay, the ball isn't bouncing our way today, but we don't even have the kick chase to get there. So why do we still do it?
Yeah, I mean, I see your point in that regard. A kick's only as good only as good as its chase, as the saying goes. So, if the kick chase isn't there, if the box kick is going too far because your scrum half is just not having a day, then you do have to make some adjustments based upon what you're seeing in front of you.
I mean, and also sometimes it's the pitch. You can have the pitch could be no good for box kicking and kicking and chasing in general. It could be a pitch that's waterlogged and the grass has grown an extra quarter inch, and now you're not going to be moving as fast. So why try and use a tactic that it has speed involved in it that you're not going to get because of how the pitch
I think
is.
in this particular case, the Romania game, because it was raining and the ball was slick and the conditions did perhaps dictate that a few more box kits might elicit a mistake or two in the attacking red zone, then it might have been worth it to give a big kick. But let's talk about overall these 3 matches, this autumn test tour. What were your takeaways?
I think the biggest thing was selection. Again, I questioned a little bit of the selection and the use of some of the guys. If I had my druthers, if I got to pick, I would be playing Ethan McVeigh as much as I can. I would be playing Connor Buckley as much as I can. I would get them ready for 2027 now because they're going to be the future in 2031 at 9. What realistically the other thing is, where are we going to find locks? Because we really don't have them. You can't teach height, but you could teach rugby. So what are we doing to try and truly fix that? Because right now we're throwing undersized locks in. Those are my 2 big takeaways, because we can't go into 2027 with just 8 back row players is essentially what we're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So my takeaways, I think the 1 and 2 was expected. Disappointed to see that we couldn't hold on to a closer result versus Romania, versus Georgia, excuse me. My big concern, and I like, by the way, B-SAG, I think he had a really nice autumn test series, and that's good to see at such a young age. I think some of those young guys are coming along, but my big question is, who is next man up with regard to the 10 spot? Yes, we have Hilsenbeck, but Hilsenbeck's 32. We have Cardi, who's I think just turned 29. And then AJ, of course, is 34. He's injured quite frequently. We need more depth at 10. Who's that young 10 that's going to possibly steer the ship into 2031? And that's my big concern. It has been, it will continue to be.
I grant you that, but we know who the 9s are, so we should play them now. I think we could wait till after 2027 to figure out 10. Just saying. My point is prioritize it. You've already identified the guys now because you've selected them, right? You haven't selected the young 10 yet. I'm just saying, you didn't in the past couple windows. You didn't select the young 10. So how about you play with the older 10s going into 2027?
But he isn't even on the roster.
The young 9s. Yeah,
he isn't even on the roster. That's my concern. I could see bringing a guy like that, and you bring him with, because you give him an opportunity to experience the process, experience the tour. Yeah. You maybe get him in there at the end, but he isn't even on the roster right now. That's my concern.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. So maybe you're bringing in the 9s first to then get through the tournament to get through your 10s, and hope to God LeBron James decides to play fucking rugby. But other than that, guys, that's episode 224. I'm the big guy, Scott Ferrara. That's Rob the Hammer Schmidt. We'll see you guys next week.